Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Ms. LaBelle, I'd like to start with you. CBP saw a sharp increase in the number of total enforcement actions from fiscal year 2018 to 2019, with enforcement actions now on track to almost double in fiscal year 2021. These include actions related to inadmissibles, to apprehensions and arrests along the border. During that same time, we've witnessed a 73% increase in the amount of cocaine seized at the border. Would you agree that these numbers suggest that there's a huge increase in the amount of cocaine entering the United States from the southern border?
Thank you, Senator, for that question. And so we're not seeing, I mean, yes, we've seen some increase in cocaine, but over time, over the last couple of years, it's been relatively stable. What we're very concerned about is certainly increased cultivation numbers in Colombia, because I think what we have to do is make sure that it never reaches that stage. And the efforts that are being made at the border, most of these come through the ports of entry, through vehicles, and that's where the scanning information, the scanning devices come through, certainly for fentanyl. And so what we're seeing over the course of a couple of years is that it's relatively stable. But we have to look back at the interdiction piece in Colombia, and cultivation numbers are up.
What about the increase that we're seeing in fiscal year 2021? Isn't it possible that at least some of those are attributable to the open border policies of the current administration?
Thank you for asking that question, Senator. I think that so flow doesn't always equate to seizures. Some of that have been because we had actually earlier this year during COVID, fewer people coming across the border. Again, we work with CBP very closely to make sure that they have the support they need to prevent cocaine from coming into this country. And again, I want to go back to the interdiction work that we do, that the Coast Guard does, and the work that we do with the country of Colombia to make sure that those drugs never even make it that far.
Okay. Now, let's talk about the relationship between sentencing and drug interdictions and drug activity. Setting aside for a minute the disparity issue, just assume categorically that if we started sentencing cocaine generally less harshly, wouldn't that have some risk of increasing or at least incentivizing drug trafficking across our southern border?
Senator, I want to go back to what we're looking at right now is the disparity issue, and I think what we're talking about is that 18-to-1. We haven't seen an increase in crack cocaine use, and in fact, it's a tiny proportion of people in this country who have substance use disorders who use crack. And for powder cocaine, it's about twice as much. But really, we haven't seen the relation between sentencing guideline and use or even trafficking in the country.
Given the fact that we've got, let's assume for sake of argument that these drugs should be treated the same way for sentencing purposes and that there shouldn't be this disparity. This still does leave an outstanding issue that I'm not sure the bill we're discussing today addresses, given how dangerous that both crack cocaine and powder cocaine are, and the current triple increase in the number of cocaine-associated deaths over the last decade. Why shouldn't we be concerned about raising the amount of crack cocaine needed in order to trigger the mandatory minimum rather than lowering the amount of powder cocaine? Do you understand my question?
I think so, but I want to. So cocaine overdose deaths are up. However, what's causing that increase is the presence of fentanyl in people who have died. So it's not cocaine use solely. Cocaine use is actually somewhat down.
Yeah, but they're still dying because they purchased and used cocaine. I mean, well, yes, it's tainted cocaine, and it's been cut with something that is very deadly. But these are still deaths. They are still cocaine overdose related deaths. There's another complicating factor. But I'm not sure that negates the sentencing concern I'm talking about. In other words, my question is, do we need to be concerned about What's the appropriate level to set it? I think there is widespread agreement on this committee that the disparity is difficult to defend. The question becomes, what do we do about the disparity? Do we raise the threshold for one or reduce the threshold for the other?
I think what the bill calls for and what the administration supports is reducing the crack cocaine threshold to make it even with powder cocaine. I don't think we're requesting an increase. I don't think that's related to either cocaine use or overdose deaths.
Mr. Chairman, my time's expired. Can I ask one follow-up question? Governor Hutchinson, do you have any response to that question? Do we raise one, lower the other? Do we meet in the middle?
That's a great question, and my answer to that is, again, I think we're better off addressing the concerns of these substances in terms of increased penalties based upon whether there's a firearm at the time, whether there's other violence or the victims and the prior record. Those are things the sentencing judge can consider, and I think that's preferable. And with where we are right now, I believe that the act as addressed and as drafted is a good remedy for it.
Okay. Thank you.